It is way too early in the year for me to be doing these live streams. Typically, these are the streams that we are doing every night during the season, where obviously lately, every night in the streams, we are drafting fantasy football teams, which we are going to keep on doing. But I checked in on the site and we've had a bunch of sickos send questions in. I think a lot of it's from people getting the free season pass. The season pass, then getting the free trade questions and sending in those free trade questions. I want to make sure I'm answering them for y'all. So here it goes. And I will say, of course, if you haven't gotten your season pass yet, definitely recommend doing so. $34, get access to everything on flogfantasy.com. Not only do you get access to everything on the site, but also you will get 2 free trade questions and 2 free start set questions during the season as well. If you use code FLOCK, I'll be the one answering those questions for you. So let's go ahead and let's move this over for Black Tie PGA. Says we're also getting Jawan Jennings and a 2028 first. So we are trading away Ricky Pearsall, 3 second-round picks, Jordan Mason and Restrepo for 2 first-round picks and Jawan Jennings. I'm definitely going to go ahead and say that you're winning with the 2 first-round picks and Jennings here. I prefer Ricky Pearsall in Dynasty, definitely. But, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're getting to 2 first-round picks, Jordan Mason maybe nothing 12 months from now from a Dynasty perspective. Same thing with Restrepo. And points per game this next season, I don't know if Ricky Pearsall and Jawan Jennings are going to be that different. And if you're picking up the 2 first-round picks, that's what we're going to want to go with. Now, 2 tie-dye 4 coming through says, 10-team PPR 103 Chase locked. Next picks, Drake London plus wide receiver running back, or are we going to go running back? Grab Burrow, Daniels, rounds 4 and 5. What are your strategy? Rounds 4 or 5? So for me, personally, in your regular redraft league, I actually don't like the idea of taking Joe Burrow at the end of the 4th or the beginning of the 5th round. I would rather either just take the elite level quarterback there in the 3rd, whether that's Lamar or Josh Allen. And I know you're saying that this is going to be a 10-team PPR format, and I'm assuming you have access to everything on the site. So if you look at our draft sheets, you will see that if it's a 10-team PPR, 1 flex league, I really do like the idea of taking Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson in the 3rd. And I think that'd be a lot more advantageous than you taking like Joe Burrow in the 4th or the 5th round. Now, if you want to get Jaden Daniels at the 4 or 5 turn, I think that's going to be a much better way to go about it. And if we're looking at a 10-team league with only 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, I don't know if we want to be following it up with like wide receiver at the 2-3 turn. I think you definitely need at least 1 running back there. So they're at the 207. If you could get a running back that you really like, that would be ideal for me, because I think that would give you a lot of flexibility if you go like Jamar Chase and then Devon Achane through the first 2 rounds. Jamar Chase and Ashton Jeanty, Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry. I know maybe that's much easier said than done, and maybe instead it would be like Jamar and Chase Brown. In that case, obviously you could look at London, but I would stay flexible and definitely try to get at least 1 running back there, and I wouldn't be looking to take Burrow. But appreciate you, and I hope I was able to help you out, my friend. Now let's look at Stupid Sexy Flanders, who is asking, rebuilding, targeting 2026 and 2027 picks. We're making a trade with a contender. So from a dynasty perspective, I would way rather have TreVeyon Henderson over James Cook. And I really even haven't moved TreVeyon Henderson in my dynasty rankings from the preseason game. He was already extremely high. So if we're trading away James Cook, getting TreVeyon Henderson, trading away Devontae Adams for a second on a rebuilding dynasty team, I think this is like the perfect kind of deal. And 100% you're even more excited about this now that you do have the preseason performance from TreVeyon Henderson. So we're going to run with it, my friend. Now, Rico Suave coming out, and this is a deal where it's a dynasty, 2 quarterback, 10 team, start 10 format. And one thing that's real cool, when y'all send in questions on flogfantasy.com, just a heads up, I can actually see all the league settings here at the bottom. Maybe we need to move this up for y'all so y'all can see them too. But anyway, we are sending away a first-round pick next year and Caleb Johnson to get to Saquon Barkley. One thing that's going to be relevant here is if we're going to be a contending team or not. Our team, we're sitting with Dak, Geno, Caleb at quarterback. Running back, we have Amari and Hampton. We would have Barkley. We also have Bijan Robinson. Wide receiver, JSN, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Brandon Ayuk. At tight end, we have Trey McBride. So you're definitely a contending team. And if you wanted to push in to try to contend this season, I'm not going to fault you at all for going ahead and getting Saquon Barkley here, because I think in reality, that's not an early to mid 2026 first. I think in reality, that's probably going to be mid to late. Now let's move this over to Daniel Gadsden. Says 10-team redraft single flex, traded picks to get pick 19, 21, 27, 28, 34, and 41. Thoughts on a start of JT, Bowers, Garrett, Lamar, Marvin Harrison, Amari, and Hampton. I mean, I really like it specifically because, again, you're going back to this 10-team single flex format where if you're able to get the elite tight end, you're able to get the elite level quarterback, you can kind of play catch up at skill positions, because it's not like you're going to be in a horrible spot if you have JT, Amari, and Hampton at running back, Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver. I'm sure like your team, when you plug it into the league analyzer after this is done, will probably tell you that you have a below average running back room and a below average wide receiver room for a 10-team format in particular. But if you get Lamar Jackson and Brock Bowers that are going to make up such a high percentage of your starting lineup output in a single flex league, I would really like that start, to be honest. Now let's move this over to our next one. This coming out from Nick. Says 12-team PPR keeper league, pick one to keep. Gibbs in the first, Nico in the second, Achane in the third, and Brian Thomas Jr. in the eighth. So 99% of the time I get keeper questions. I would say that you really just want to go with the best player. Now, obviously that's not every time, but most of the time I get a question like this. It's like, oh, would you rather keep Jahmyr Gibbs in the fourth, or would you rather keep, let's say, Kyron Williams in the 16th? And I'm like, you know what? I know it sounds like, oh, the 12 rounds is that big of a deal, but there's a larger gap between Kyron and Jahmyr Gibbs for me than there would be between a 4th and a 16th round pick, just because the way that as you go further in the drafts, the values kind of flatten out. But here, a first round pick for Jahmyr Gibbs is very expensive. Nico Collins in the second is very expensive. HN in the third is very expensive. So honestly, I think I would go Brian Thomas Jr. in the 8th. Because if you just think about where these guys are going to get drafted in your draft, Gibbs will go in the first. So how much value are you actually getting if you keep him there? Nico's going to go at the 1-2 turn. How much value are you actually getting if you keep him in the second? HN's going to go at the 1-2 turn. So you definitely pick up value keeping him in the third. But Brian Thomas Jr. is going to go at the 1-2 turn as well, and you get him in the 8th. So this is one of the very few instances where I'd actually say, you know what? Let's keep the guy that is a little bit cheaper. Let's go ahead and let's get Brian Thomas Jr. Now, next question coming out from Brian. This is a trade question here, who's asking Garrett Wilson, Rashee Rice for Nico Collins. This is going to be a redraft, 1 quarterback, 12-team PPR start 7 league. At least that's the way it was filled out. We don't have a team actually linked. So I'm just going to assume that the way that this was filled out was correct. And if it is a single flex format, I'm going to be fine going and getting Nico Collins, especially just knowing you're going to be able to backfill with the waiver wire, where if Rice sees a suspension and you're not able to put him in the IR, could clog a roster spot for you. Now, if these league settings aren't correct and this is like a multi-flex league, then obviously keeping the additional starter probably would lean more on like the Wilson and Rashee Rice side of things. But if it's a single flex format, I think we go with Nico. Now, CJ Preb coming out. This is Quinshon Judkins versus a second and RJ Harvey in Dynasty. So I think from a talent perspective, Quinshon Judkins is, I want to say undoubtedly better than RJ Harvey, or at least from a prospect perspective. Quinshon Judkins was a much, much better prospect than RJ Harvey. But with all the off the field stuff, you can even just see in my Dynasty rankings here, I have moved Quinshon behind Harvey as is. So the fact that you're picking up an additional second round pick here is going to be a no-brainer. Give me RJ Harvey in the second. Now, Win Stanfield coming out with our next question. This is a trade. I'm assuming you got the season pass here, and that's why we got the free trade, or you're an annual mother flocker. Regardless, appreciate you, my guy. Excited to look at this. And here, this is going to be a deal where we are sending Achane and T. Higgins, and in return, we're getting Trevion Henderson and Drake London. So how I'd break this down is I'd rather have Trevion Henderson over T. Higgins in Dynasty, and I'd view Drake London and Devon Achane about the same. Like, London's still incredibly young. Like, Drake London's younger than RJ Harvey. So for me, I think that you win this deal for sure. And again, I haven't even moved Trevion Henderson on my Dynasty ranking since the preseason game. I just love Trevion Henderson as a prospect and think he's in a perfect spot. Now, this is going to be another Dynasty question. from Win Stanfield. This is going to be Puka versus Bucky and Tet McMillan. And this is actually a little bit of a tougher question here. I would say from a contending perspective, we're going to prefer Puka. Going through and looking at our team, running back, we have like Swift, J.K. Dobbins, Jalen Warren, Brian Robinson. So we don't have, we have Montgomery, we have R.J. Harvey. We have okay running backs. We don't have anybody at the top end. Wide receiver, we have Igbuka, we have Ridley, we have Ayuk, we have Addison, we have Puka for now, we have Marvin Harrison. Tight end, we have Laporta. It's a super flex league. We're at quarterback. We're sitting with Kyler and Fields. This was a 12-team league. I'd say we have a pretty strong team. We're definitely looking to contend. With this being a 10-team format, however, I don't know if we do have the strongest squad here. So honestly, I'm fine if you wanted to just go ahead and get the long-term asset with Ted. In a general vacuum sense, though, I do think that Puka is going to be the more valuable asset in this deal, especially in a 10-team format where the depth's not going to matter as much. Now, Laugh Pharaoh says, I want to draft in the second round a tight end. Who should I draft? I'm seeing McBride go in the first in some drafts. So it's really going to depend on your league settings. Like, let me pull something up here, but I would be very surprised if if Trey McBride goes in the first in your league. So if you were looking at drafting an elite tight end, which in my opinion, I think this is a really good year to do it. If you're in a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format, if you're in a multi-flex league, it's a little bit tougher. But the price points that I'd put on these guys is I'm fine taking Brock Bowers anywhere in the second. If you really want the elite tight ends, I'm fine taking Trey McBride at the end of the second. I'm fine taking, and then obviously any point beyond then. I'm fine taking George Kittle at the end of the third or any point beyond then. But the big thing is, if you're going to miss that range of tight ends, if you're not going to be able to get Kittle, you're not going to be able to get Bowers, you're not going to get McBride, what I would strongly advocate avoiding for is going to be, don't just take Sam Laporta or TJ Hawkinson in round 5. If you want the elite tight end, go ahead and just pay the couple round premium to get the true elite name. And I wouldn't try to get like a 2-round discount to drop down multiple tiers. Now, a San Francisco Niners fan says 10-team PPR with bonuses. Start 2 quarterbacks, wide receiver, running back, flex, 1 tight end, defense, kicker, quarterback, defense, highest projected points. What is the strategy? So here in terms of what we need to be adjusting for wide receiver, running backs, not much. The only thing that I really think we need to adjust for is going to be when it comes to the 2 quarterback starters. So there's a difference between a super flex league and a 2 quarterback league. If you're playing in a super flex format where you have a super flex spot and you can start a quarterback there, but you could also start a wide receiver if you wanted to, what you can go ahead and do is really devalue that quarterback 2 in a 10-team league specifically. Because if you just do the supply and demand math of the quarterback position in a super flex 10-team league, 12-team league, 14-team league, everybody's going to try to get 3 starting quarterbacks, right? I think that that's just the natural thing that you're going to do. And if you're going to be playing in a league in which you have 10 teams, realistically, you could go ahead and you could get every team in your league 3 starters, and there could be a couple quarterbacks left over for a 4th. So you don't need to be panicking over the quarterback position. However, in a 12-team format, everybody's going to try to get 3 starters. Some teams will be able to. Some teams are going to be stuck with only 2. 14-team league, there are going to be some teams stuck with only 1 quarterback based off the supply and demand. So if it's a super flex format, I would not be panicking about quarterback 2 here. However, if it is a true 2 quarterback league where you have to start 2 quarterbacks no matter what, I mean, it would be nice to get 2 hammers. It would be nice to get like the Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, somebody as your QB2, somebody that you can comfortably rely on. Now, regardless, you need to be hammering Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts at the very top of the draft if you can. They still give you a significant edge over the rest of the field. But hope that was able to help. And Lal Faro coming out with just an insane super chat. I really appreciate you, my guy. I'm going to hook you up with a free team review on top of this. So after you draft your team, link it with the site, and you should have a free team review. So send me your team. I'm going to be happy to check out your team, check out your entire league, come up with some trades, and do the whole 9 yards for you. But we are in an 18 PPR draft league. Tomorrow is the draft. So honestly, we missed the boat. Well, this is too late. You already had your draft here, it looks like. So thank God we gave you the free team review. Let me give you a couple free trade questions and start set questions on top of this. So I do feel very bad about that. So please, you should already have your team. Link it with the site. Send it to me as a roster review, and I'd be happy to just do a deep dive on exactly how the draft went, exactly what your team looks like, and moves to make from here, and compare that to the rest of your league as well. So again, super sorry for not being able to get to this the day of, but I hopefully can look at your team ASAP, my friend. Now, Dorf coming through. This is going to be another keeper league, 2 quarterbacks, where we are giving up a first, a second, Baker, Jennings, Rice, Godwin to get to Josh Allen. It's going to be a 10-team start 11 format. I'm looking 12 months into the future, like Godwin going to be pushing 30, 2017 draft class. He's pretty young coming out of Penn State, but still that's the same draft class. You have guys like Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook, Austin Eckler, Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, all these guys that are aging out at this point. Now, I think Godwin's going to have a longer runway at wide receiver. And again, he was super young in that draft class. But ultimately, like, if we're looking at this, say Rashee Rice is worth a first and a second. Baker Mayfield's worth a first and a second. Godwin in a second's worth a first. You're looking at like 4 first round picks versus Josh Allen. So it is a very fair deal. Like, I would say that this team getting all the wide receiver depth is not getting robbed whatsoever. And it being a start 11 format, that wide receiver depth is valuable. Don't get me wrong. Dynasty Superflex League, I still probably opt to go with the best player available here. I still probably go with Josh Allen, especially in a 10-teamer. Like, if this was a 12-team start 11, I'm taking the package for sure. Give me all the starters. But 10-team start 11, I think we go Allen. Now, Pube Jackman coming out with our next question. And let's see. Let me refresh this. Oh, dear God. And pull this back. So hopefully we don't have that issue during the season. And I know that we have some roster reviews as well that were sent in. I will do a team review live stream. Not tonight. Tonight's getting pretty late. I probably need to record a video as well soon. So we're probably not going to be able to get to the teams in tonight's stream, but I wanted to make sure I can get to these questions for y'all. Now, Pube Jackman says, never been in a 2-quarterback league, just joined one. So if you need help with a 2-quarterback format, it's a redraft league. If you go to those draft sheets that we have posted, which, I mean, you're here submitting a question on the site, so I'm assuming you got the season pass and you have access to these. But if you go to the 2025 Flock draft sheets and look at the directory, you can see pages 49 and 50. We do have Superflex big boards up for you. So definitely take a look at those. But one thing that's different in a Superflex redraft league in comparison to a Superflex Dynasty league is in a Dynasty league, it's pretty congruent across like most leagues what quarterback values like. However, in your regular redraft Superflex league, it's like very much up in the air based off how your league mates are valuing the quarterback position. Now, Goose Berm says, should I keep Jamar in round 1 or LIK round 5? Can somebody please let me know who LIK is? I'm checking the chat right now. Somebody spam the chat and let me know. John says his Texas on East Coast time. No, Texas is Central time. So it's 10:47 for me here. During the season, we're going to be streaming every day until like 2 a.m. probably. So this is nothing. Okay, it's definitely Malik Neighbors. I thought Isaiah Likely at first as well, but it's Malik. If you're looking at Jamar round 1, Malik round 5, if you have pick 8, this is a damn good question. So one thing that you have to contextualize here as well is if everybody keeps a player, pick 8's not really pick 8. Because there will be guys off the board that would have, like, maybe Bijan's kept, maybe Gibbs is kept. So maybe that pick 8's a lot more like pick 16 or pick 15. So, like, let's go and let's look at a player that may be actually at pick 8. Let's say, like, Ashton Genty is pick 8 for you this year. So a way that you can view this is you can view it as, like, would I rather have Jamar Chase or the combination of Ashton Genty and Malik Neighbors? And you can throw this into the trade calculator and you can see that they are about equal value. Actually, yeah, that's a redraft league. Perfect. But one thing that you have to contextualize as well is you are going to have to keep Malik in round 5. So if we look at, say, like a round 5 player in comparison, which again, round 5 options maybe going to be a little bit worse with the keepers, but it would be like Calvin Ridley, or maybe a better comparison would be just running back so we can go like apples to apples, would be like DeAndre Swift. So if we're looking at like Chase, Swift versus Malik Neighbors, Ashton Genty, the trade calculator has the Chase side as the slight edge. I don't know if I would agree with that. I think it's going to be very, very close. I probably would go with Malik Neighbors, but it's not an easy call. If you had like a pick later than 8, it would be easy. 9 times out of 10, I want to just keep the best player, but if the keeper cost is a round 1 pick, it's really tough. Now, Gary says, does the season pass come with trade question vouchers? Yeah, if you didn't know, so if you got the season pass and you used, regardless, if you got the season pass, you should have free start set questions and free trade questions on your account. If you used promo code FLOCK, those trade questions will be for me to answer trades for you for free. So you should have 2 free trade question vouchers and you should have 2 free start set questions. But the start set questions we don't have live on the site right now just because I don't want to be answering start set questions in on August 10th. Now, Seaborg says, in a 12-team sleeper with 2 wide receivers, 1 flex, what's the draft sheet? Okay, I'll show you this real quick. So if you have, so again, go to the draft section on the draft guide section on flockfantasy.com, hit the 2025 draft sheets. You said 12-team sleeper, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. 12-team sleeper, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex will be a start 7 format. That's going to be page 9. Page 19. Scroll down here to page 19. And this will be the draft sheet that you'll use, my friend. This will be it here. And then obviously you can copy and paste this into your own little Google sheet. That way you can mark off guys as they get drafted if you're drafting on your computer, or if you're drafting in person, you can print it out and just cross them off with a pen. Now, Michael, always happy to see us, says 12-team map PPR start 7, both pass and rushing TDs worth 6 points. Would you still take a second quarterback? Who would you still take in the second before QB? Half PPR, you're going to have the skill positions just naturally scoring less. Quarterback scoring is not going to be impacted whether it's a PPR or half PPR. Obviously, they don't catch the ball regardless. So if you're looking at, say, a start 7 format, they're going to make up such a high percentage of your starting lineup output weekly. I would probably move up Lamar and Josh Allen to be early second round picks at that point. Like, I'm still taking the top 15 players over them. I'm still taking Derrick Henry, Brian Thomas, Devon Achane all over them. But if you wanted to take in a 6-point passing touchdown, half PPR, start 7 league, Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson as early as pick 16, pick 17, pick 18, I think you could go for it. Okay. Now, Matthias says, 103 in an ESPN PPR start 7. What draft strategy should I use, and who should we look to drafts in rounds 1 through 5? Let me go to the draft sheet, pull up your exact draft sheet. Give me 1 second. So this is an ESPN Start 7. You didn't tell me how many teams were in the league. I wish you were in this stream. So it maybe y'all are like confused on how I'm answering questions on the site with the people not in the stream right now. But once I answer the question for the person on flockfantasy.com, it automatically sends them a link to the live stream with the exact timestamp that I answered their question. So they don't even have to be in the live stream when I answer it. And they just click the link and it takes them right to when I answer their question. So I don't think Matthias is in this live stream. Don't worry. He'll see his answer. But it would be nice to ask him a question if it's a 10-team or a 12-team league. Because if this was a 12-team format, we would be looking at this being sheet 7. So let me go down to page 7. So 103, we would have one of your picks being running back. Your call between Bijan, Barkley, Gibbs. I may move Gibbs over Barkley depending on what the offensive line looks like after the injury in Philly. Then if we're looking at the 2-3 turn, I have the quarterbacks here ranked as pretty strong plays in that start 7 format, given the fact it's a single flex. And I think you either go with an elite quarterback where you kind of hammer in a 3-down running back at the 2-3 turn. Like I wouldn't mind going running back, quarterback in that setup. And then if that is the case, then when we get over here to the end of the 4th round, the beginning of the 5th round, you need to be taking wide receivers. You need to go like Terry McLaurin and DJ Moore. So hopefully that helps. But in general, in this setup, I like going with the bell cow running backs, maybe getting yourself an elite quarterback or an elite tight ends. And then if you do that, you definitely have to hammer wide receivers in rounds 4 and 5. Now, DeGraw coming through. This is Trey Benson, Calvin Ridley versus Xavier Worthy. It's a Dynasty league. So if this is a Dynasty format, this is a runaway deal with the Worthy side. I would maybe even take Worthy in a redraft. This is an absolute no-brainer, my friend. I love it. Shane coming through says 10-team PPR keeper, Lamb, 3rd pick, no 2nd round. Do I go wide receiver running back in the 1st? And then what are we going to do in the 3rd? So I don't know your starting lineup requirements. Again, highly recommend using, I'm assuming you have access to the draft sheets. And even if you have a keeper spot, definitely still use the draft sheets. I mean, the draft sheets are going to be viable regardless if it's keeper or redraft. Just make sure you cross off the players that are being kept. But if it's a 2 wide receiver, 1 flex format and you're the 3rd pick, if you can get Bijan, Gibbs, Barkley there, they're smashes. But if it's a keeper league, it's very difficult for me to know the exact players that are going to be available to you. Like, I'm not going to just say, oh, we need a running back no matter what, so let's take Devon Achane here over Justin Jefferson if Jefferson's available. Like, obviously, we're not doing that. But ideally, there you could go ahead and you could take Bijan, Gibbs, Lamb, one of those players, whoever it may be. Because especially if you're in a 10-team league, I think you're going to see the running back fall off before the wide receiver position. And then at the beginning of the 3rd round, if you could get like McBride, Allen, or Lamar, I would like it in a single flex league. Now, Jesco says, keep Chuba in the 13th or JS in the 7th, ESPN standard half PPR. So the difference between a 13th round pick and a 7th round pick is not going to be massive. Because if there are players being kept, we can kind of assume that a 7th round pick is a little bit closer to an 8th round pick. So we go ahead and we look at like what the player pool is probably going to be like. This is the range that you're looking at, like Jaden Reed, Hawkinson, Jawan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, Matthew Golden, Kyler, Baker, Tony Pollard. Let's just say like it's Brian Robinson. Would I rather have a Chuba Hubbard and Brian Robinson, or Chuba Hubbard and Deebo Samuel, or Jackson Smith and Jigba? For me, I'd probably rather have JSN. It being a half PPR format makes it a little bit tougher. I think JSN's a little less interesting there. But especially if it's a keeper league where JSN could take another step forward and you could keep him going into next year, I think I'd go JSN. But Michael out again says, in a half PPR start 7, would you recommend us drafting off your personal rankings if we know the player won't make it back, or the power rankings? The personal rankings in that instance. This is a great question. Let me hook you up with a couple start set questions, my guy. Appreciate you hanging out with us so much. But that's a great question regarding the draft sheets, because so every draft sheet for the specific league settings, we have our rankings tailored to take advantage if it's like a 10-team league, 12-team league, one flex, double flex, half PPR, non-PPR, full PPR, whatever it may be. But with the draft sheets as well, let me just pull them up on Google Sheets so you can get a full view of them. And then obviously, don't like be trying to use the draft sheets in flockfantasy.com, like through the little eye window. Just use flockfantasy.com to be able to open them up in Google Sheets, because they'll be much, much easier to use there. But like, say you're using the ESPN 10-team PPR start 7. Just as an example. So like, the reason why I decided to make this power ranking, and what the power ranking consists of, is it's the average between the ESPN ADP and my ranking. Obviously, if you're using the sleeper sheet, it'll be sleeper, et cetera, et cetera. But the reason for that is, like, when you're here in the middle rounds, I don't want you reaching dramatically on a player. Like, say I have Travis Hunter ranked as an early to mid 5th. ESPN has him going in the 7th. So if I can average it out with his ADP at 62 between the two of us, and say like, oh, take Travis Hunter at the 5-6 turn, or take him in the 6th round instead of the beginning of the 5th, I think that's probably going to help you come away with a better team. But if you're selecting like the, say, 104 or something, or the 103, and you're like, oh, Mason technically has Jahmyr Gibbs ranked over Jamar Chase, obviously neither player is making it back to me, you could choose to go off the my ranking, which is why obviously I give you all this information. Like the master ADP, this is the ADP across like 6 different fantasy platforms, and it doesn't even really calculate into the power ranking anymore. But I just wanted to give you that additional information for you to make your decisions. So I don't think you need to use the power ranking for everything. I just think that it's more useful than just my rankings alone, because it can help you exploit the ADP on the platform you're drafting on as well. Now, OJ Got Framed says, oh my gosh, in a $10,000 buy-in league, okay, we got to lock in. 12-team redraft, full PPR, Yahoo, 1 quarterback, 3 wide receiver, tight end, single flex, 7 bench, 4-point passing touchdown, 6 teams make the playoffs. What is the best strategy? Hero wide receiver or running back? So 3 wide receiver, flex, full PPR, 12-team league. I like the idea of going heavy wide receiver. I am sure you have access to everything on the site, so I'm sure you have these draft sheets. So let me just make sure you know the draft sheet that you should be using. The draft sheet that you need to be using is page 32, is the Yahoo 12-team PPR start 8. And you'll notice as I pull up this sheet that we have a preference for the wide receivers here. Like the wide receivers, you'll notice, are ranked higher on this sheet than they would be in like the 10-team ESPN 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. And then also the tight ends are going to be lower and the quarterbacks are going to be lower. So I really like the idea of building around your skill positions, especially at the wide receiver position. So like if you're drafting at pick 7 as an example, like honestly, I may go with the wide receiver there. Now, if you know your league mates and you know like, hey, once we get to this range of the draft in like the 80s, 70s, 90s, pick 100, I'm going to be able to get like a Buka in round 10. You know you're going to just get crazy wide receiver values. Then obviously you're a little bit more inclined to at least make sure you get that hero RB and make sure you don't fall behind at that position. But regardless, whether you take the running back at the very top, the wide receiver at the very top, what I wouldn't look to do in your league unless you get them at a value is I'm not going to be pushing up Brock Bowers to an extreme degree. I'm not going to be pushing up the quarterbacks to an extreme degree. I'm not going to be thinking that we can draft 3 running backs out the gate. Unless the 3 running back instance, maybe you could, if you know your league mates, you know you're going to be able to get incredible wide receiver values through the middle to late rounds. But I'd imagine it's not the easiest fantasy football league in the world if it's a $10,000 buy-in. And I would love to see that team after it's drafted. But best of luck, my friend. Best of luck. The most expensive fantasy draft I've ever been in is a $1,000 underdog draft. But I think we got a couple more questions that came in. This one is from Hyperbot. It says 10-team, 2 wide receiver, single flex PPR. Is it bad to go with an elite tight end and an elite quarterback, Bowers and Allen in rounds 2 and 3? Is it too little invested up running back and wide receiver at the top? No, not at all. In the previous league we just looked at where it's a 12-team format and you have to start 3 wide receivers, I would say yes, it would be bad to go with Bowers and Josh Allen. But here, if it's a 10-team league where you only have to start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex, it's going to be so easy for you to find those receivers and running backs. Quarterback, tight end is going to make up a very high percentage of your starting lineup output. So 100%, I like the idea of going with Brock Bowers and Josh Allen. Like, this is the format you'd want to do it in. Static says, keep Bucky with the 15th round pick or Brian Thomas Jr. in the 9th round. Picking 10th in a 12-team half PPR format, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, and a single flex. So I talked about this at the very beginning of the stream, but these are like the most common keeper questions I get. That's like, keep this incredible player in round 9 or this incredible player in round 15. And with that instance, almost every single time, you just want the best player. And in my opinion, the best player here is going to be Brian Thomas Jr. So that's where I would go with it. The instance where like the keeper cost becomes really important and it becomes a much tougher thing to think through is if you're keeping that player in round 1, if you're keeping that player in round 2. But the difference between a 9th round pick or a 15th round pick is honestly very marginal in a keeper league. So both would be incredible keepers. Obviously, we'd love to keep both. But if we had to pick one or the other, I think we're going to go with Brian Thomas Jr. But I think that's all we got. I am waiting. Oh, actually, we just got one more from OJ Got Framed. Was this the $10,000 league? Okay. It says, cool. So no quarterbacks or tight ends early, you think. Is there a way to get advice live when drafting in a few weeks, or should I just look at the sheets during the draft? Okay. I'm just trying to think through this. So I'll get back to the initial question at the beginning. There's no way I could ever do like live, like shoot me a message and I can answer you immediately. It's very difficult for me to like commit to that at this time of the year. What I was going to say, maybe you could come on the live stream. We could draft the $10,000 team together, but probably not. But let's just, I would say definitely make sure you have the updated sheet. I promise you we'll make sure the updated sheets are every Friday out for you. So in regards to quarterbacks and tight ends early, let's pull that sheet back up. So you said 12 team, start 8 PPR. So like where I would be looking to go quarterback, tight end here is I think you would have to have like Jonathan Taylor, Devon Achane, Brian Thomas, Genty, Malik Neighbors, obviously all the round 1 players already off the board before you look at Brock Bowers. Like, and in reality, one thing that I would explore if it's a start 3 mandatory league and not just a double flex, I would probably push Drake London and AJ Brown ahead of Brock Bowers as well. I don't mind still getting the elite quarterback at the 2-3 turn, whether that's Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. For the reason being is in those Yahoo drafts, I have seen in the middle rounds, just the quarterbacks like Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield get pushed up an unreasonable amount to the point where like you may be seeing the opportunity cost of like, let's see, Joe Burrow has an ADP of 41, right? Let's look at a wide receiver. Marvin Harrison has an ADP of 43. So if we decided to take Josh Allen here at pick 25, instead of taking T. Higgins or Tyreek Hill, we'd have like Josh Allen and Marvin Harrison or Joe Burrow and Tyreek Hill. The Josh Allen side clears there easily. So I would say that the thing we need to put ourselves in the position to do is hammer wide receivers and running backs in the middle rounds. I would limit yourself to at the very most one elite tight end or one elite quarterback if they fall to you at a value, but we're not reaching on them the way that we would in a 10-team, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex. And the landmine quarterbacks of like Joe Burrow with an ADP of 41, like I have him ranked at 63. Like we're not taking this dude. Sam Laporta, ADP 48, I have him at 73. We're not taking him in this format. Mahomes, ADP 51, I have him at 83. We're not taking him in this format. So I think you can get an elite tight end. You can get an elite quarterback, but you can only get one of them. Like you either got to pick tight end or QB, and then you have to avoid these guys in the middle rounds, and you have to opt instead of taking like Sam Laporta in this kind of league, you got to take Rashee Rice, Sutton, Devonta Smith. Instead of taking Joe Burrow, you got to take Marvin Harrison, Terry McLaurin. But I hope I was able to help you out there. And I'm sorry that we can't do any type of live, like texting assistance or anything like that. It's just very tough because I'm pretty much just nonstop live streaming. Once we get to, especially a few weeks from now, it's going to be even crazier than it's only going to get busier from this point, to be honest. Now, Woodsy says, I'm in a keeper league and I have the 6th pick. I have Chase in the 1st and Neighbors in the 4th. What do I do if the 6th pick gives me Puka? Okay, so let me reread this. So we have the 6th pick. Are you saying we're keeping Jamar Chase in round 1? Woodsy, if you're I'm assuming you're in the live chat with me right now. So I'm assuming we're keeping Chase in round 1 and Neighbors in round 4. What do I do if the 6th pick gives me Puka? So if you're saying you get Puka falling to you at pick 6, I don't understand how that would work if you're keeping Jamar Chase with the 106. Cameron says, no, I have to choose one. So are you saying you have to choose between Chase in the 1st, Neighbors in the 4th, or Puka in the 6th? Or are you saying at pick 6, I can get Puka Nacua if I don't keep Jamar Chase, and I can essentially have Puka and Neighbors, or I can have Jamar? I would choose Puka and Neighbors over Jamar in a 4th round pick, if that's what the setup is. So a couple different ways to answer this based off the way that it was written. I just want to make sure I'm 1,000% in line with you, my friend. If we're choosing between Chase in the 1st, Neighbors in the 4th, give me Neighbors in the 4th, and let's draft Puka Nacua at the 106. If we are choosing who to keep between Puka in the 6th round, Neighbors in the 4th round, and Chase in the 1st, which I don't think that's what you're asking, but just in case it is, we would go with Puka in the 6th. Okay. Caleb says, which sheet do you use if your draft is offline? Perfect question, because that's actually what I am going to be using because the Flock League is offline. So if the draft's offline and you're not doing it where your league mates are going to be looking at the ADP for the platform that you're drafting on, what we did in that instance is we created these sheets called Other. So if you're drafting also like on a weird platform like CBS or Flea Flicker that we don't have draft sheets for, you can use these other sheets, or if you're drafting in person, you use the other sheets. Because what you can do here is say like the sheets I'm going to use for the Flock League will be page 44. So how we built these out is we don't have a platform ADP, but we have the master ADP. And this master ADP is a combination of ESPN, Yahoo, Sleeper, Underdog, and FFPC. And then we average out the master ADP with my rankings. So essentially how the fantasy football community takes these players, how I value them for the specific format that you were drafting in, average them out, and that comes up with the power ranking. So use the other sheets if you're drafting in person or if you're drafting on a platform other than ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo. But Skull Viking says 14 team standard starts 7. Is Josh Allen at 16 crazy? So the difficulty with a 14 team league is based off the supply and demand of the quarterback position. You may be in a spot dependent on what your league mates do. And if they like the idea of rostering 2 quarterbacks for whatever reason, you may not be able to stream a quarterback if you ever need one. So if you wanted to lock in an elite quarterback, especially if you think that there's going to be a run on quarterbacks in rounds like 3 or 4 in your draft, which weird stuff like that will happen in a 16-team league. I'm sorry, a 14-team league. I think you can go for it. Now, is there anything else to say with this? Not really. Especially if you're saying it's a non-PPR format, which I'm assuming that's what you mean, standard. Then quarterbacks are going to make up such a high percentage of your starting lineup output. Aiden says, is there a way on Flock Fantasy to see your rankings for a non-PPR? Just looking to see if your rankings for each position in non-PPR updated. So in terms of the rankings on the site themselves, so the rankings on the site that I keep up to date every single day, these are for PPR and half PPR formats. Half PPR would have slight adjustments, which you can see in the draft sheets exactly. But these are mainly for full PPR, and I think they're useful for half PPR as well. Non-PPR, obviously, you have to make dramatic adjustments with how you value running backs and quarterbacks in comparison. But if you go back to those sheets that we were showing for the draft sheets with the rankings and everything, and if you go to the directory, there you will see that we have non-PPR sheets for every platform with non-PPR rankings. So I think that should be it for all the questions. I'm still waiting to hear back from Kirch, at least I believe so. But let's refresh one more time to make sure we're not missing anything. Okay, we're not missing anything. And we're going to slowly but surely have to start doing some live Q&As in the streams. Definitely, I'm still going to be drafting the teams on the site and drafting the underdog teams every night because while I enjoy talking fantasy football at all times, obviously, I definitely enjoy drafting teams more than answering questions. Which, don't get me wrong, I like answering questions, but I love drafting teams. So we're going to draft teams every single night in the live stream. Right now, I think every third or so night, maybe we'll do the live Q&As just whenever the questions come in on the site. And then as the season gets closer, and I'm sure we have more questions that we have to answer, we'll have to increase the frequency of the Q&A streams. But appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. Hope I was able to help you out in some way. And again, I will point out for the 1,000th time, I'm sure you're tired of hearing it by now, but I'm going to make sure you're tired of hearing it, that the season pass gets you access to everything on flockfantasy.com, all the rankings, all the draft sheets, not only all my stuff, but also all the stuff from all the other creators as well. 4 different draft guides, all of everybody's rest of season rankings and weekly rankings throughout the entire year, all the tools. And if you use promo code FLOCK, you'll get free trade questions and free start set questions for me to answer in these live streams, which we're going to do every night during the season. But appreciate you. And really hope I get to see you out with the live stream tomorrow night.